I'm Barry Coleman with AmeriFlax. We're based out of Bismarck, North Dakota. And the mission of AmeriFlax is to increase the sale and use of U.S. grown flax and flax byproducts and coordinate research, education, and government programs for flax. Our board members consist of Mike Axness, the president from Minot, Roger Gushis from Carrington, who is our vice president, Lee Novak from Minot is our secretary treasurer, Jacob Downing from Cargill and West Fargo, Mike Osley from the Carrington Research Center, and Troy Coons from Donnybrook. Looking at last year's flax crop, the 2020 crop, USDA said our acres were about 200,000, which was down 25% from the year prior. Now, we all know that the 2019 harvest was a disaster. About 30% of the flax crop was left in the field in 2019. And we think that experience was the main reason for the drop in acres in 2020. A lot of people probably had a bad taste in their mouth from what they went through in 2019. At that time, we did work with the state FSA committee to update their factor they used to determine WIP plus payments for flax growers who were unable to harvest. We think it possibly added about $10 an acre to their payment because the factor was changed to a 0.93 instead of 0.85. And the reason that factor was changed was because the assumptions that the majority of the flax was straight harvested is in place now versus 20 years ago when that wasn't the case. So that factor needed to be updated. And we're very appreciative of the committee acting so swiftly and making that change for us. USDA said about 45,000 acres were unharvested that year. So if half of those got a WIP plus payment, that's over $200,000 in extra payments to flax growers. So we thought that was an important program for growers. So for 2020, we ended up with about the same amount of acres harvested as we did in 2019, even though the acres were down 25%. We had a 21 bushel average, which was down from 22 the prior year. Flax was a part of the CFAP 2 this fall, which paid a flat rate per acre for growers. For the U.S., total acres were 305,000 in 2020. Montana is the only other state reported that USDA puts numbers in for, and they had 105,000 acres of flax. Their yields were only 16 bushels an acre, but that was up from 15 the prior year. Production of flax total for the U.S. last year was 5.7 million bushels. AmeriFlax has a website where we have resources for flax, which is a main part of the site that we are constantly referring to. Constantly referring callers and emailers to us as the database of flax handlers and processors. Constantly getting questions on that, referring people to it. We also use it to display upcoming events and announcements and provide a resource for consumer health and producers. Some of the things we do for producer promotion are shown here. The KMOT Expo in Minot, Friends and Neighbors Day in Mandan, producer handler handout sheet that we provide to growers. Crop budgets we try to do every year to try to provide potential growers with a reason to put flax in, and of course our research bulletin. For consumers, we act as a health resource for flax health questions. Attend North Dakota health fairs. We do health education mailings. We've got flax facts, brochures, promotional items, and of course our website. And we also do quite a few different sponsorships with the limited dollars that we do have. The NDSU's Eat Smart, Play Hard program, Egg Day at the Capitol, and a healthy cooking video segment that we provided information for this year to Luann Alamo and Associates, which did not cost any money, but we were able to provide a lot of good flax information to her. Now, she is a food and nutrition educator and a National Blue Zone speaker. And so she provided a lot of information on highlighting the benefits of adding flaxseed to recipes. And she has a huge following on the internet. And anyway, our logo, website, Facebook segments were displayed and highlighted during her video segments. And it was a very good promotion for flax that Luann basically did free of charge because she believes so much in flax. We also have a flax children's curriculum that we have developed that we provide to educators in the state. We have mailed out quite a few curriculums this year to teachers that requested them. And we also just created a Flax children's video geared towards K through 4 segment. It's a 1.5 minute video that we're offering as well for the Egg in the Classroom program and for the school system statewide. I'd mentioned our Flax research update. This was the one we did in 2018, a publication that we have available online as well as can be mailed out to those on request. And we will be updating that research update just shortly here with the compilation of the 2019 and 20 research. These next few slides show some of the research funding that AmeriFlax does and a lot of these presentations that you're hearing about. We've got $8,300 to promote beneficial symbiotic fungi in flax, the flax breeding program, $15,000. Brian Jenks did a flax tolerance to soil applied herbicide study that he'll probably have data for to present to people next year. That's at $7,500, $10,000 for the variety trials. And then also that study that Greg just talked about in Williston by Dr. Prodden for optimal seeding dates in no-till conditions for $11,750. 2021 research funding, we're doing this year 2 of the flax tolerance study, or actually it's year 4 of that study. Flax variety trials continuing, year 3 of the optimal seeding date study, and a new study or a research proposal for using flax shive as an alternative raw material for particle board production by Dr. Nahar at NDSU. So that will be a new potential study on alternative byproducts for flax that we think has some exciting possibilities. Just want to touch a little bit on the NDSU flax breeding program. Greg did talk about that. But anyway, the main objectives of the program are to develop and release improved varieties for the region's growers. They're making new crosses each year and progeny are constantly being moved through the breeding pipeline. I do want to mention too that the Saskatchewan flax growers also see a real value in the NDSU flax breeding program because, believe it or not, they think a lot of the material coming out of NDSU program fits their geographies more closely than their breeding programs up in Canada. So it is an interesting perspective from the Saskatchewan growers, and they've also expressed maybe some commitments to providing some funding to ensure that the flaxseed breeding program is maintained at a good level too. This just shows some of the different varieties that were released. The most recent release, of course, is the ND Hammond in 2018 that Greg had talked about. And here's the Gold ND, which was released in 2014. They plan to release another brown-seeded cultivar next year, NDFB13, which will be given a different name, obviously, but the average yield of this cultivar was 6.5% higher than the Czechs. This next chart, right, where is it? Right here, kind of a busy chart, but anyway, you'll see it's labeled 1 through 36, and you'll see a lot of the breeding line varieties are at the top of the charts here, comparing to a lot of the commercial varieties in the state. But anyway, you'll see the mean over the Czechs over here on the right-hand side. So what this shows us here is that there seems to be quite a few in the potential pipeline in the next few years that will be coming out, which is good news. NDSU has also initiated a genotyping by sequencing of 377 diversified flax germplasm from the University of Texas at Dallas. They were able to identify an abundance of SNPs, which will be used in the breeding program. And this is the first time that a GBS has been done on flax in North America. They've done a population structure study to look at this population, and 7 subpopulations were identified with diversified origin. And those are shown right here, and all the different germplasm that Dr. Rahman is looking at for flax with the goal of increasing the diversity of the flax breeding program. And this slide here shows a report that was published in a reputable journal, BMC Genomics, last year. Just want to touch quickly on the symbiotic fungi study that we had funded last year. Looking at trying to see whether flax will provide a beneficial fungi into the soil for subsequent crops. Dr. Kaylee Gash had done some studies on this and looked at 3 locations in North Dakota where she grabbed some soil samples, analyzed the samples in the greenhouse, and basically determined that there were quite a bit of fungi on the roots. This shows pictures of roots that she collected from the field, showing that the AM fungi is present. She's looked at a lot of plants, and she's never seen plants that have had this much arbusculation, which means there's a lot of nutrient exchange between the fungi and the flax. So she hadn't really found any benefit in the wheat in greenhouse trials, but she will be developing some research materials for us to try to see what kind of results we have from flax providing beneficial fungi. So that wraps up the presentation. We hope that the flax industry will rebound this year and reach a level that will allow more funding of research into new uses for flax. We need to have the acres to make this happen. Thank you.